Now, Maniac Cop 2 was a pretty good success though too, right?
1990.
Yeah.
1990.
It was very successful.
Right. So you had kind of created this little franchise now.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
It's like, why not a third one?
Yeah. So now I know there was a lot of controversy with the third one.
Yes.
I know that as the film is made as it is, when you see it, it's directed by somebody we all kind of know named Alan Smithy.
Yes.
So now, I mean, I know if it's a sore spot with you, but I wouldn't
It is,
like,
well,
what's,
it's
what
not a
kinda
sore
happened?
spot. It's really, it's a situation where there were too many chefs in the kitchen.
Was this also written by Larry? Or
Well, what's on the screen is very little of it remains of Larry's script.
Really?
Yeah. It was a situation, on the first two movies, I was the producer.
Mm-hmm.
It says Larry, but Larry wasn't. I was the producer.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And we were responsible. We did the pictures. They came in on budget. They were, everything. They were successful. Everything was great. But what happened is the company that financed the second sold the rights to another company in America called Overseas Film Group. And they were working with a group of producers who were making a lot of films for their company.
Okay.
Led by a guy by the name of Joel Swanson. Very nice people.
Mm-hmm.
All very nice. But, you put two people in a room, they're going to have two different points of view. I mean,
Sure.
I'll say.
No.
Everybody
Yes.
could be, amicable and,
Yes.
nobody
They
has to
mean
be.
well,
So
but
true.
It's well intended, but different points of view.
Yes.
And I'm suddenly sitting there, and it was like Larry and I, in some odd way, kind of started to feel marginalized.
Mm.
It was like it was these guys' movie, and it was their, they were in control, and they had the power with the financier. We didn't. We had no power. They had all the juice.
Wow.
We were well paid employees.
Okay.
We were
Right.
very well paid.
But not your vision. It wasn't your vision up there.
Yeah, it was just like we were making this movie, and I remember this kind of sums it up. Is one of the producers said, "Look, I live in Santa Monica. None of my friends in Santa Monica watch the Maniac Cop movies. What we want to do, Bill, is make a Maniac Cop film for people who don't see Maniac Cop movies."
What? So in other words,
Right.
your audience, you're not going to try to go with your audience. You're going to.
What he said in his own way, it makes sense. What he was saying, what he was trying to say is, we want to take this out of the niche
Okay.
and broaden it to a bigger audience.
Okay.
And so everything became a struggle. It became a conventionalized. It became, as an example, Larry's script was written for a black detective, not for Robert Davi. Robert Davi
Because he returns his character.
his character was not in the movie
Okay.
at all. It was a black detective, and we had cast a very, very good actor
Mm-hmm.
to play the role. In fact, they did the casting right over here near Radford Studios,
Mm-hmm.
right near here.
Can you say who that actor was?
I forget his name right now,
Yeah.
but he was in Daylight. He was in one of the Jaws films, I think Jaws 3 or something. He was really
Samuel L. Jackson.
No, it wasn't. But a very, very, very good actor. Very interesting.
Right.
And the story itself was interesting. It took place.
Yeah.
It took place in Harlem.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the movie took place, and it was supposed to be where this detective, in so dealing with this supernatural character, is confronting his childhood of being grown up in a household that practiced voodoo.
Mm-hmm.
So we had all these interesting elements involved of going and getting into the Harlem world, which really exists.
Mm-hmm.
The Harlem voodoo world, the Santeria world, all that kind of stuff. That this character would be getting involved with, and there's traces of that in the film, but it doesn't even make any sense. It just comes out of nowhere.
Yeah.
It comes out of nowhere. So that we had this thing where the financiers were not able to get a commitment from one of the biggest financial components to the Maniac Cop series, and that was Japan. And it was believed, and it turned out to be true, that they were not committed because of having a black lead.
Oh.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's still that way in Japan.
Yes.
Interesting.
And across in a lot of international markets too, that is a problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you're still on board here. You're at the as the start of it.
Yeah, no,
you're still on board.
I'm on board, but I'm starting to see what are we going to do.
Yeah.
And you know, and when the financiers say, well, what if Robert Davi comes back? They say we're on board. You know, and that was a big chunk of the financing. You know, the movie was made, I think it was $3.5 million. In Japan, I think it was like 800,000.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not talking about chump change.
No.
You're talking about real
no.
money. And so you know, the idea was to write out this detective and write in a Robert Davi.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And when that was accomplished, we had a script that was maybe just over 60 pages, 70 pages,
Oh,
something
wow.
like that. It was a really cut down script.
Mm-hmm.
And suddenly, you know, we're moving closer to pre-production. We're in pre-production, we're closer to production. And we're kind of making up this movie as we're going along because we have to fill it out to be a 90-minute movie.
Right.
And there's no 90 minutes anymore. And it just became like all this stress. And, you know, versus when you're making a Maniac Cop 1 or 2, it was just putting the pieces together of this puzzle that you already had the picture in your mind.
Right.
I'm making a movie. I don't know what the hell I'm making.
Really?
I'm sitting there going, what am I doing? What's going on? What scene? How does this fit here? How does this do? And I'm really, and there can't be any harder experience than when you're going through something like that, where it's a real mess, and you're trying to make sense of it.
Right.
And that mess led to a lot of tension,
Mm-hmm.
and Joel Soisson was kind of coming in and writing, because Larry gave up at this. Larry.
Oh, really?
Larry took. You know, Larry is not a team player in that he'll throw me under the bus if he could. He did. He said, "Look, I've been paid. I delivered a script.
Yeah.
No one said the script was bad. You're asking me now to write a new script,
Right.
and I'm not going to write a new script without getting paid for a new script."
Right.
That was Larry's position. You can't blame him.
No.
I mean,
Right,
it's
right.
not like me. I'm directing a movie, and they're asking me to redirect. They told me, okay, you're not going to make a new movie,
Right.
you know, but we're not going to pay you anymore.
Right.
Larry said, I wrote a script. Everyone liked it. You know, it was a good script, you know. Now, I'm not going to write another script. You want me to revise the other script? I'll revise it. I'll make some changes, but I'm not going to start from scratch, put in all new characters.
Right.
I'd have to come up with a whole new situation. That's just not going to happen.
Right.
So it became Let's Wing It. And
Wow.
it's Joel Soisson, and then of course Robert Davi got to, you know, he realized he had some power because of the financing chunk of it came in because of his involvement,
Right.
and it became just became a nightmare. It really did, and I really just I tuned out. It was like I was there, but I wasn't.
Really.
I'll argue though that because I've seen the movie and it's not, at least for me, it's not like an embarrassing train wreck of a movie. There's still some cool elements in there. The idea that I think you or Larry Cohn even mentioned, I think it's a little bit of a Bride of Frankenstein idea because you have the female cop who's in a coma and she was put there wrongly and so it's like the maniac cop is kind of like wants a girlfriend, so he's kind of like feels for her. So you have that kind of element in there, which is not bad. And there are some great stunts in this movie too.
Well, I will tell you that unlike the other films, the entire fire scene with the cop with the thing, Spiro directed it in its entirety. I was never there.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, basically he went out with the crew, and he was given. But you know, I knew Spiro really well.
Right.
But you know, we talked about the beats. But at the end of the day, it was totally him.
Right. This is like a car chase where this time the maniac cop is driving a car while completely on fire, and it's pretty amazing.
You know, I started it, I ended it, but all the middle chunk, all that stuff on the bridge, all that stuff is all Spiro and his team.
Right.
So how much would you say that you maybe did 75% of it, or?
Well, it's funny. The first reel of the movie,
Yeah.
or the first 20 minutes or 10 minutes of the film, not one bit of it, except for the flashbacks to the earlier films, is mine.
Oh, Wow.
Every bit of that was directed by Joel Soissons.
Wow.
They went out and they had to fill the running time.
Oh, right.
So it's all bullshit footage
Oh,
that
you're
they did
kidding.
to fill out the running
Wow.
time. Even the scene where Davi is on the firing range with her, it was on that day I quit.
No.
Wow.
Yeah, I came there. Joel had written this scene with Davi, with him and her. It was just so fucking corny
Yeah.
and stupid.
Yeah.
And I just looked at it and I said, I can't shoot this shit.
Really?
I
Wow.
said, I can't shoot it. Guys, why don't you take over? I'm not going to be any good for you.
Really?
And they did,
Wow.
you know, they did. And Joel shot that. He directed it. I was there at the beginning of the thing, but I didn't direct any of it.
Right.
I just left so I could say goodbye and I'll go home.